Welcome to Original Being, where we explore the timeless wisdom of ancient practices and old ways of living. From holistic health and wellness to survival techniques, homesteading, and primitive skills. I'm Jillian Aries, a functional and holistic-minded physician associate and a homesteading mother of 3. I am on a quest to reconnect with the knowledge our ancestors lived by, practical skills, natural healing, and self-sufficiency in a modern world. Each episode, I'll be sharing insights, experiences, and conversations with experts and everyday people who embody this mindset. Together, we'll challenge modern conveniences, embrace hands-on learning, and rediscover the practices that have stood the test of time. Disclaimer, the information shared on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. My opinions and those of my guests are solely our own and are not affiliated with any institutions, employers, or certifications. This podcast does not provide medical advice, and any health-related decisions should be made in consultation with your personal healthcare provider. By listening, you acknowledge that you take full responsibility for your own choices and actions.
Today on Original Being, we have Claire Garner. Claire has always had her hands in the soil. She holds a bachelor's degree in ecological agriculture from the University of Vermont and ran a thriving CSA in central Vermont for 3 years after graduating, growing food, tending the land, and staying connected to the cycles of nature. That deep connection to the earth still shapes her life today. Claire tends a large vegetable garden as part of her personal practice for slowing down, finding balance, and deepening her own knowledge of seed saving, cold crop storage, and food security. Values she sees as essential not only for sustainable living, but for emotional well-being. Even though Claire loves growing food, she's no longer a career farmer. Nowadays, Claire is an intuitive emotional healing guide who helps people feel their emotions with clarity and compassion so they can stop looping in pain and finally shift the patterns that keep them stuck. She's the creator of the Intuitive Emotional Healing Framework, a simple body-led process that teaches people how to recognize the emotional energy underneath their thoughts, decode what their feelings are trying to say, and release old emotional patterns that no longer serve them. Claire's work blends grounded psychology with a soul-centered approach, giving people both the tools and the mindset to navigate their inner world with clarity, compassion, and confidence. She also worked in oncology massage and functional medicine health coaching prior to this, and today she works with clients through private one-on-one sessions, multi-day online programs, and inside her membership community, the Conscious Heart Academy. Wow, Claire. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jillian.
That's quite an amazing bio. So for our listeners too, I was just telling Claire, I'm so excited to have someone on that sort of has these two branches of all the things that we like to talk about on this podcast. So like really this like amazing gardening background and agriculture, and then to also go into the emotional healing. You know, they seem like they're unrelated, but they're not, are they?
No, not at all.
Especially getting your hands in the earth like you talk about, you know. So let's start out with your background. So where did you go, like after UVM? How did you start in the CSA and everything you were doing there?
So I was super lucky. My parents live in central Vermont, and they had a 47-acre farm at the time with a barn and a tractor. And so I actually moved home with my best friend from college. Throughout our very last year of school, we would go to my parents' house, once a month, clean out the barn. We put up a little 18 by 26 greenhouse and put up posters, got some CSA members. And the moment we graduated, we just hit the ground running on my parents' land.
That's amazing.
And, we just did he was only with me for the first year. The second 2 years I did on my own with volunteers. But it was just a square. It was a little more than an acre of tilled land. I had a cut flower and herb garden as part of that for the CSA, and then just did row crops, and then added in, I ended up doing pigs. I decided to raise pigs as a part of that. So all 3 years I did 3 Tamworth pigs, always 2 girls and a boy. We had laying hens. We did broilers the first year, and then the second and third year I added in a home bakery also, and we added in the Randolph Farmers Market in Vermont. So
that's a lot of work.
It was a lot. For one person, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a great experience. But as you can imagine, I was exhausted after 3 years.
So did you do a meat CSA too?
I sold the pigs by the half. So they gave a deposit, and then when the pigs were processed, we settled up for the remainder. Yeah.
And had you had any like large scale gardening experience prior to starting that?
I mean, I had to do internships for my major.
Yeah.
So I'd worked on the student-run farm at UVM, and I had done an internship just for one summer on a farm in Peacham, Vermont. And they did
Okay.
they did a farmer's market, and I feel like that's all we did, actually. We did 2 different farmers markets. So, yeah.
I always just have so much respect for people trying to make a business out of gardening, because if anyone's had their own vegetable garden and you know how hard it is, just trying to create the food for your own family and dealing with, lack of rain or too much rain or those things. So then when it becomes like an actual source of income, I feel like that stress and that pressure just must be incredible.
Totally. Yeah. And when you're doing it on your own, also like thinking about, okay, I've got all this surplus of stuff that needs to get put up. How do I have the time to do all of the things for the business, take care of the garden, be a person, and put food up on my own? That was finding that balance I wasn't able to do in my early 20s. It's not a thing that I got to.
Or a lot of people can't do ever.
Right. Yes, this is true. This is true.
Wait, so let's talk about the pigs a little bit, because I actually just had a pig that we raised this past year and had processed. Only one, which I wouldn't do one again. I would definitely do more than one.
Yeah.
But did you do electric fencing with them? Were they in like a forest setting? How did that work out?
So every year we would train them inside. Basically, it's not chicken wire, but it looks like chicken wire. Like 3 feet high with electric fencing that ran around the inside. So they would get used to the visual of the fence and the shock of the fence, but couldn't get out. And then once they were in there for a month and seemed like they were doing well, we would literally like trap them in a dog crate, like, and pull them out of there. And then, I had electrified sheep netting that we would move them. So they had a house on skids that we built. And they had sheep netting around the house on skids. So it was pretty cool. When it came time to move them, we had a Ford F-150 farm truck that we would drag them behind, set them up on new pasture. So they were in pasture. They weren't in a wooded setting. Yeah. And they would clear land for us and fertilize areas of pasture.
They clear so well. Like, I feel like everyone always just like, oh, get goats when you want to clear land. But I was so impressed with what she was able to do.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
They get that nose right under.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. We definitely need to, if we do more pigs, we need to do that same method. I've read that everyone recommends that, where you like have the physical fence in a smaller area with the like hot wire. Yes. Then they get trained to that. And then you move to like just another electric fence, because she was quite the escape artist and we learned a lot of lessons.
Yes. Yeah. I learned the hard way on my very first day having pigs. I put them in just 2 strands of wire. I thought they would stay in that. And they were out within 5 seconds, and we were chasing 3 8-week-old shoats like around the farm that didn't know who was going to feed them, didn't know where home was. And so after 45 minutes, we finally had all of them in a chicken coop in the barn. That was a whole thing the first year. Pigs teach you real quick what you don't know about raising pigs. Yes.
We basically had the same situation. My son won one at a pig scramble at a fair. Oh, okay. And apparently all those pigs, like in this area, there was a point of time where there was like 5 piglets just running free in like our area because everybody lost them because they were all they were crazy and they weren't that tiny. They were like pretty big. And we had the same thing. I had her like in the chicken coop until we could like build this enclosure. It was crazy. So they're very strong. If anyone's thinking about getting pigs, very strong. Definitely need to be trained to electric fence. But they clear unbelievable land. They were able to get the roots out from trees, and it's really amazing.
Yeah, the pigs are part of the first part of my really like connecting in with the land and realizing. At the time, I had a farm mentor who has since passed away. His name is Carl Russell, and he worked with draft horses and was just an incredible steward of the land. And he raised pigs on his farm just over the mountain from where I lived. And he was like, raising an animal is true value added. Like there's a life that happens between the birth of that animal and the bacon on your plate. Mm-hmm. And so he really fostered within me this awareness that it's really important how we treat the animals. Not that I'm inclined that way anyway. Yeah. I'm such a big-hearted person. I want every being in my life to have the full experience that it is supposed to have. And so for me, just knowing like wow, I'm investing in my land by bringing in these animals that are helping me care for it and fertilizing it as they go. But then I'm investing in myself because they're going to be nourishing me at the end, and I'm nourishing other families through this.
Mm-hmm.
And so those pigs, my favorite part about getting pigs every year was learning, like gaining their trust
Yeah.
and petting them behind their ears, and eventually getting to the point where you walk in and they throw themselves at your feet because they want you to rub their bellies. I always gave them human names, and people were like, "Why are you doing that? You're going to eat those." And I always said to people, it's really important to me that they're just treated in a way that honors them,
Mm-hmm.
and I want them to receive affection. Pigs are really smart. They're really
Yeah.
smart. They're really social, and they just drink it up. And it's like, if I'm going to be eating this animal, I want to give it the best life that I possibly can. And so that was my first time, like really consciously investing in the land in a real way through these animals. And it was such a meaningful thing for me every year going through that process. Even though my heart broke at the end, every
Yeah.
year, there's so much grief at saying goodbye to these animals that have been alongside you all season. But it was so meaningful for me, and I was so grateful for them. Um, Always thanked them before we said goodbye, and always made sure that the way that we processed them created the least amount of stress possible for them so they didn't know what was going on. And that I felt really good about, because when you're buying meat from somewhere else, you don't know how that animal was treated. You don't know what kind of life it
Exactly.
had. And so it's so important. It's just always been really important to me, especially with pigs, to just know that they're coming from farms, from people who get it, who raise them in a way that's honoring to
Yeah.
what pigs need in order to have a happy life.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it was so hard to have her. We had her processed because a guy would come. He was like a mobile butcher, so that he would come
Yeah.
here, so we didn't have to stress her out and bring her anywhere. And he was amazing, but I was like bawling my ass out. Just like, it was just awful. And I was questioning my decision every step of the way. But like you said, you just have to come back to, like, if I'm going to choose to eat meat,
Exactly.
I have to do it this way. I have to feel this pain. I have to honor this animal. I have to know that we raised her the best we could. We gave her the best life we could. That she is an integral part of like our landscape and our little farm and everything here. And yeah, I think that's like the best way you can do things.
Totally. Yeah.
Yep. So let's talk about the plants a little more. Actually, let's go into your new garden, because you gave me a million garlic scapes and it was amazing. And now I just want to keep like being like, so what else are you growing over there? So let's talk about your new garden. So you're not doing the CSA. You moved away from that. That was a long time ago. And now you have your own plot that you're just growing food for yourself, or what's happening there?
Well, so this is my 4th year on this plot. I used to be 12 minutes from the garden, and now I'm like 34 minutes from the garden. But it's on some land that's owned by another family, and it's a 50 by 100-ish plot. 50 by 40 is fenced in with deer fencing, and it's right on a river, and it has a huge feeder pond with cattails in it. So I'm so lucky. They just want someone using that space. They don't have anyone who's gardening locally here. So I just happen to know the caretaker of that land. And yeah, this is my 4th season growing there. They have a pump that goes down into the feeder pond. So I have unlimited water. As long as there's electricity, I have water to water my garden.
That's amazing. Do you have that on a drip system? Like, how do you have that connected?
I actually hand water all of my plants.
Really? Like, you just put it in a watering can?
No, I have hoses hooked up.
Okay, so you have the hoses hooked up to the pump. So what kind of pressure are you getting out of that?
Great pressure.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, it kind of has a little bit of a pulse because it's got to come up a hill to where I am.
Yeah.
But no, I have great pressure. They bought a new pump last year. And
I'll have to find out what kind of pump you have, because I need something like that.
I'll have to ask my caretaker friend.
Because we have like an old well, but it's like really nice water, and it's right next to where our garden is, but we can't get the pump we have is like, it's like a trickle coming out. It's not good.
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah, I don't know if it's a different kind of thing because it's just like literally down in the pond.
Yeah.
But I literally, this is actually part of my connection to my plants, and the way that I slow myself down is hand watering all of them is the last thing that I do in the evenings before I leave. And I bet it takes me about an hour to water everything.
Yeah.
But just the process of, slowing down, putting the hose where it needs to go, watering a little bit, shutting it off, walking back, bringing more hose into the row that I'm in. There's this cadence to the whole thing, and you're checking in on all of your plants as you're doing this. So last night as I was watering, I was seeing little places where I was like, oh no, that carrot's getting shaded. I would like turn off the water and go pull the weeds that needed to be pulled. It's a really beautiful spot. And in the evenings watering, it's my favorite thing to do there. It's so relaxing. I feel like if I had everything on a drip system, one, I don't know if that would work with the pump that I have, but two, this going row by row and seeing how the sweet potatoes are doing and like checking on my little cabbages that are getting decimated by flea beetle and just being like, I'm sorry, guys. And just watering everything. It helps me be more present. And honestly, I try to do it in sandals as much as I can. I have thistle in my field, so I can't really be barefoot because even when they're tiny, tiny and they're sticking up through the soil, it's
they're the worst.
not pleasant. Yeah, thank you. But I try to be really present. I try not to listen to music if I can and just be with my garden while I'm doing that.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, my garden's probably nowhere near as big as yours because I'm just doing, our home stuff, but I do the same thing. And it takes a very long time to like go through and water every section. But yeah, you have to take a pause and a break from everyday life and just be present with your garden. And it's a nice, like peaceful moment to do that and to, see how everybody's doing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm being overrun with weeds, so it kind of is stressing me out now.
I get that one.
So what are you growing right now?
I'm growing a little bit of everything. I always do over 60 feet of garlic, as you know, from all the scapes that you got. I have 65 feet of garlic this year. I have 2.5 65-foot rows of potatoes.
Wow.
I've got 2.5 35-foot rows of sweet potatoes. Which is always fun too. I grow onions. I do a lot of brassicas, a lot of like the broccoli, kale. I do Brussels sprouts, which is hard because I do seriously have a flea beetle issue out there. And so it's difficult to get those guys up to full size quickly. What else am I growing? I have a row of lavender because I've got a healthy vole population, and voles, I hear, do not like lavender, although I'm not seeing...
Good to know.
You're not seeing it works. I don't know if they need to get bigger, but what else do I have? I'm doing celery this year for the first time. I've never done celery before, but I do carrots and beets. I'm doing dry beans also this year, which I haven't done since I had my CSA back in the day. I haven't done dry beans. So I got 5 different kinds. And those look great. They already have pods on them, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and then I have a small flower patch. I've got some nettle that I'm getting established. And I do quite a lot of Tulsi every year. One, because I just love how Tulsi smells, but then I do dry a bunch of it. I have a nice herb dryer rack, and I do dry a bunch for tea for over the winter. So
yeah, Tulsi's lovely. I only did a little one this year, but one year I had a ton, and it's amazing. And it smells so good.
Yeah, it smells so good. And then I guess I do a small, I have like 13 hills of mixed squash and pumpkins also. So
you're going to have a lot.
Yeah, well, I do jack-o'-lanterns for my nephews who live nearby. And I mean, a lot of this stuff I just give away. I give a lot of food to people. I love, I have never been a financially abundant person. I've always had many streams of income and have what I need, but not exorbitant. But I always have a ton of food. And so it's really fun to just feel like so abundant when it comes to food. Just be able to be like, do you need like last night, a couple of people stopped by the garden and I was like, do you guys need head lettuce? I have lettuce that's about to go by. Would you take a couple of heads? You'd be doing me a favor. it's just really nice to be able to offer that to people, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Food is wealth and abundance. Absolutely. Especially food you grew yourself that, is organic and you've put your heart and soul into it. So that's really awesome. Tell me a little bit about how you store, like, I think you had talked about cold crop storage because I've had a hard time storing potatoes. I didn't even grow that many regular potatoes this year, even though my family eats so many. So we really should have grown them because they always sprout on me and I just have had a hard time, or they get moldy or something. Like I've had a hard time finding a good way to store. So I'd be curious how you're doing that.
Totally. So, I, up until February I was in a relationship with someone who had a house, with an amazing basement. I've since moved, so I've got to figure out my cold crop storage for this year. But for the last 3 years, the situation that we had was the basement in that house would stay somewhere between 45 and 55 degrees. And there was like a little built-in kitchen area where you could close the door if you needed to. So we basically just had a dehumidifier down there. I stored the potatoes in just burlap in wooden crates that had kind of like the apple crates that have the slats on the bottom. So there's airflow that goes through them. And down there in low moisture, in the burlap and wood, they would stay perfect all winter and wouldn't start to sprout. I mean, they do start to sprout in the spring, but mostly because we were not staying on top of the humidifier when the moisture kicked back in. But everything, I mean, I stored everything down there. My squash, I found that spaghetti squash will store the longest of all the squashes that I cured, at least the variety that I've been growing. And I would just literally have squash on shelves down there in that same room. So, and my garlic I would store down there as well. So.
I'm wondering, because we have a fieldstone basement. It's a very old house. And I just think there is a dehumidifier, but I think it's still too wet. I don't know. Like I didn't actually even try to store them down there because I was just like, this is too wet. So I was doing other areas that seemed cool and dry and seemed better, but I don't know. Maybe I'll have to try the basement.
I know that at my sister's house, she has in a part of her basement, but it wouldn't need to be a basement. It can literally be a bedroom. If there's a closet that you can shut a door where things stay relatively cool and relatively dry. As long as it's like dark, cool, and dry, they're going to do better than anywhere else that you've got.
Yeah. So. And then when you had them in that bin, was there anything around them? Like, people use, it's not really straw, but it's like a material that's kind of around the potatoes, or were they just all just in the thing?
I just made sure that they weren't packed in super tight, that there was room for them for air to circulate. And yeah, they were just in burlap and wood bins, and that was it. And they did great. They've always done great. Yeah.
All right. I'll have to give it another shot.
Yeah. I played around with different ways to store carrots. Like I did bins with like those Swedish cloths on the top, those Swedish paper towels that people use or whatever. And I was told that you could get a bin, drill like holes in each side, and then just keep changing the Swedish cloth like every few days, every week, just to keep it so there was some moisture but not a ton. And that worked for a little while, but what I found was they started getting these little, like my carrots started growing those little white roots all over each other, and then eventually started to mold. I did the same thing with parsnips. I've also stored them in sand, which is probably what I'll end up doing this year. But we were just really lucky. We had a second refrigerator downstairs, and so I would just load the refrigerator drawers full of carrots and parsnips and beets and cabbage and anything that we had that we wanted to keep cooler over the winter. And again, this year I'm going to have to get creative because I'm in a completely different living situation. So
Yeah, figure out how to store it all. It's a lot. I mean, the squashes are great. I had a pumpkin that I think lasted almost like, it was basically like till this spring from last fall or something. Like it was just like it was a really long time. And I'm like, these squashes are amazing. They're so versatile. They last so long. So they're definitely worth it. But I know growing these things that can sustain you through the whole winter, that you can store and can keep feeding yourself through the whole year. All those crops you listed are like, and they require minimal preservation, right?
Yeah,
like you just be able to store them, as opposed to like the tomatoes, you have to can them. You have to do something. Do you do any kinds of preservation techniques of anything else, or do you make fermented cabbage or anything like that?
With my cabbages, I just choose varieties that are super tight, long storage heads, and I just use them as I go throughout the winter. I do have a food dehydrator, and I've dehydrated a bunch of stuff. I don't grow these, but I always dehydrate apples every fall because they're like candy when you do that.
Yeah.
But I grow sun gold tomatoes. I cut those in half and I dehydrate those and just
Ooh,
put
yeah,
those
those
in
are super
jars.
yummy.
Oh, so good. I've also done zucchini in long strips. I'm gluten free, and so
Me
I'll
too.
make okay, awesome. So I'll pull out strips of zucchini that have been dehydrated and then hydrate them again and use them for lasagna.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that. I haven't done a whole lot with canning before. I do blanching and freezing of greens for sure. I also dehydrate greens and just crumble them in bags. And as I'm making like green drinks or soups throughout the winter, I will just sprinkle in dried greens into those. But for the most part, I do tend to choose things that, again, because summer is so busy and there's
Yeah.
it takes so much just to take care of the garden. I do tend to choose things that need minimal processing,
Right.
and just focus on creating good storage conditions for them over the winter.
Yeah, it is so hard to stay on top of everything. Like if you do have stuff, like of course we don't have tomatoes yet, but once they come, we're going to be just like canning every day.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you have to. And I've been trying this year to be a lot more, I've always been a forager, but I'm not always great about trying to make stuff and make things to preserve for the future. It's like, I'm cooking with it right away and then it's over. This year I am making like a more of a effort to everything that's in season, doing something to preserve it or something so that throughout the whole year I can be eating even foraged foods and stuff too. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but it's a lot. Yeah. It's like a full-time job just trying to stay on top of the garden and on top of what's coming in every day.
Well, and when you have other work and then the garden is the thing you do in the evening, it's like the evening is when you would normally be putting the food up. But if you're in the garden in the evening, that's sort of my dilemma at the moment. I am hoping I'm so lucky. My neighbor is about my age and she pan roasts her tomatoes and makes sauce out of them every year. And she does a ton of putting food up. And so I'm hoping that I can like slide in with her on a couple Sundays and do some food preservation with her. She's got the entire setup. And admittedly, that is something I do want to develop, but just haven't spent the time to do. So it's helpful to do it in pairs and with other people who are doing it. It also just makes it more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, before we branch into other stuff, I wanted to ask you just about soil. Did you do anything to amend your soil or did you add more extra compost? What did you have to do there for that?
I keep a compost pile wherever I am, and I do try to add as much compost as I can. I've been saving my eggshells separately and just crumbling them at the base of my tomatoes. I'm really lucky. The soil that I'm growing in right now, my outer field just gets basically covered in Canadian geese in the late fall and early spring. And so that field, I don't have to do anything to, because when it gets tilled in the spring, everything is huge. There's so much manure on that field. So inside the fence, I have all of these beds that I have hand formed. So I till all of my 35-foot beds by hand. I think there's 14 of them.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot
I know,
of work.
right? It's a good workout. I love it.
With an electric tiller?
Nope, just with a shovel and
with a shovel?
With a shovel and a rake. Yep.
That's even more work. Even with the like powered one, that's really hard.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like when I learned that when we till the soil, we can burn up to 50% of the organic matter off.
Yeah.
I was like, shoot, I don't want to be doing that. So I was trying to figure out, I don't feel comfortable with completely no till. So I was trying to think of low till situations. And when you till with a shovel and a rake, you break things into bigger clumps. So you're aerating the soil a little bit, but you're not breaking everything up into tiny, tiny particles. And that helps maintain the nutrition in the soil. So depending on what I'm planting in each row, like my rows of carrots and my rows of beets, like anything that I'm direct seeding right into, I do try to add compost on top before I start shoveling and turning everything. But if it's a row where I've got cabbages going in or broccoli or something where I've started them already at home and I'm transplanting them in, I will literally at the bottom of the hole put my compost in there. I hope one day to have more compost than I know what to do with, but I haven't arrived at that place yet. So I am a little bit just intentional about how I use it. In the past, I've made compost tea. There's a hillside of comfrey right next to where I'm growing. And comfrey is so good to make compost tea out of. And so I haven't done it in the last couple of years, but that's certainly back on my radar to add back into the cycle.
Yeah, comfrey is amazing. And
Yeah.
it smells horrible when you do the tea, but
Yeah, it's not great. Not great.
But it's really good for the plants.
Yeah.
I should do more of that too. We have that as
Yeah.
well. And then I do have a worm composter, but I mean, it's such a tiny amount, you know, like what you actually get. Because I have the indoor one, and then we kind of do like a rough one with like the chicken, you know, shavings and everything. But yeah, to get enough compost to do your whole garden with is it's a lot. We've never had enough to do it 100% ourselves either. Yeah. All right. Well, let's branch into your business. First of all, I want to know like how this even came about. Like, how did you like change gears so much?
Briefly, I'll try to summarize this really briefly. So I did the farm for 3 years, and I was just slowly going into debt. And I was like, I love growing food too much to have this become a thing that is stressful. So I was like, let me take a step back. I nannied for over that winter. And while I was nannying, I decided, you know what? Let me take an even bigger break. I'll sign up for the Peace Corps, which is 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that fall is the fall of 2012. I left for Tanzania, and I was an environmental volunteer in Tanzania. But I was the volunteer that all of the scary stuff happened to. I got in a bus accident. I got my backpack stolen. I know I got nearly attacked by a group of 3 dogs. I just had like all this stuff. I had a rat that was living in my rafters that as I was sleeping was trying to pull my raincoat up, trying to chew through my mosquito net. Like he was waking me up every half hour. I felt like a crazy person. Anyway, so
it's horrible.
That after 5 months of being in Tanzania, I was honestly pretty traumatized. I was having a really hard time sleeping when I came back. I had a lot of body anxiety. I had a really hard time just feeling safe in my body when I got back. And so that summer, the summer of 2013, as you can imagine, you feel like a failure if you're like, yeah, I'm leaving this small town in Vermont and I'm going to be Peace Corps volunteer. And then after 5 months, you're like, yeah, that didn't work for me. I came home early. In small town Vermont, it's like, I don't want to tell that story 500 times.
Yeah.
I had too much shame. I was just like, I need some space. So I took a job on Martha's Vineyard for the summer. And that summer, because I didn't really have any friends on the island and I was just working, when I would come home from work, I just started diving in to like Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and different personal development, spiritual books and teachers. And Louise Hay has this book that's called Mirror Work. It's a mirror work book. And there was an exercise in there that really changed things for me and sort of got me, at least on the beginning of healing after that experience. And the exercise is that you're supposed to sit in front of the mirror and you look in your own eyes and you say your name. And then you say, I forgive you for. So I read that on the page and I was like, great, I can do that. So I sit down in front of the mirror and I look in my own eyes and I say, Claire, I forgive you for. And I burst into tears. And it was like I'm not even joking, for the next 2 hours off and on, I was saying things that I didn't even know I was holding on to. It all this stuff that was just bubbling up that I had never spoken about. And it really showed me how much I was carrying. Yeah. And really helped me to start to heal some of that body anxiety. But as with a lot of us, I think I sort of clicked in and out of that work over the next really 7 years. Like between 2013 and 2020, definitely always been self-reflective, definitely always been a communicator. I've always been able to read people when I walk in a room. Like I know people's mannerisms within a matter of moments. And I can tell you how people are feeling and what people are like, who's hiding, who's not being authentic. I don't know. I just feel people. It's always been the way I am.
Yeah.
But in 2020, all of this really shifted for me. I had been working as a massage therapist and then as a functional medicine health coach over those years after I got back from Africa. And I arrived at a place where my body was starting to hurt, was having a hard time. During 2020, no one wanted to come in for a massage. That was like a really rough time. And at that time, I had been living with my sister. And during 2020, I don't know, do you have siblings, Jillian?
I have a brother, yeah.
Okay. So as you can imagine, I have 3 siblings. And so with siblings, there are periods, especially in adulthood, where you come together you start getting closer to sibling, and then you grow apart a little bit. And there's this natural ebb and flow as everyone is growing and developing. And I think it's like a natural part of being in a family. There are moments where you're closer to certain people, and then you're further away and you're closer to other people. And anyway, that's been my experience. So during 2020, the sister that I was living with, we were in one of the cycles where we were starting to go like this. And we got to a place where it didn't make sense for us to live together anymore. And so I found myself, I went from living with my sister and a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, my nephews, who I am so close with to this day. I went from living with those little balls of light to living by myself in the middle of a pandemic. And I was in a really rough place. All the body anxiety that I had in the past was like sort of still bubbling up for me. I was feeling really lonely. I'm a person who historically has eaten my feelings when I've had a hard time. So I started gaining all this weight over that winter. And I kind of had a series of moments where I was like, all right, Claire, are you going to bake another batch of sugar cookies, frost them, and eat them all yourself while you're watching Netflix? Like, is this what we're doing? Or are you going to start like implementing all the beautiful things that you've learned from Louise Hay? Are you going to start showing up for yourself? And so literally the thing that changed it for me that winter was anytime I felt like I needed to cry, like anytime I was having a hard time, I would put down what I was doing and I would go, I was house sitting over that winter while I found a place to live. They had a mirror in their front hallway. I would stop what I was doing. It didn't matter if I was cooking, whatever. I would turn things off. I would go over to the mirror. I would look in my own eyes and I would witness whatever was happening with me. And what happened was I started to recognize my own humanity. I started to recognize, wow, this person that's looking back at me that I have always criticized for how she looks, that I've always only connected with her in the mirror to like correct something. Like she has feelings. She's really hurting right now and she doesn't have anybody that she feels like she can call and talk about this in depth with. And so I started to just really have compassion for myself in a new way through that visual. Like we take in so much information with our eyes and with our ears, but we're silent in our heads all the time and we don't make eye contact with ourselves. So we just miss all of this information. So mirror work really is a thing that brought me to a new place of understanding within myself. And I just started implementing all of these beautiful ways of witnessing my own feelings, processing through my own emotion, not shoving it down. I really got in touch with my own judgments about my feelings and just started to normalize how human it is to feel with myself. And that spring, I got into a relationship, and the partner that I was with, I started sharing bits and pieces of what I was learning and what I was implementing for me and noticing a big difference. And this partner was like, Claire, you have to offer this to other people. No one is doing this the way that you're doing it. So in 2021, there's a little bit more to it, but essentially in the fall of 2021, I realized like, oh, this is a framework and there are actual substantial pieces to it that I can offer. I was able to organize it. So in October of 2021, I started offering what I'm calling intuitive emotional healing, which is everything that has worked for me. And obviously, since then, we're now in 2025, it has evolved and changed and deepened and organized itself even further since then. So I continue to get downloads and deeper understandings of what our emotions are, how they work, how we process through them, and not just cope. I think that's my biggest thing, is really helping people understand the difference between healing a feeling and coping with a feeling, because they are two very different things.
Yeah, something that spoke to me in watching different clips that you had out there was saying that like awareness is not healing, like, and I thought that was really interesting because I find that whenever I become aware of something, whether it's a pattern or maybe something from childhood or from my ancestry, whatever, I'm like, ooh, like this is exciting. I realize this, right? Like just the fact that you're aware of it and you figure it out feels really profound. But then I don't do anything with it,
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, so what's the next step? Like, what do I do after the awareness?
Exactly. Awareness is opening the door. I talk about awareness as like opening the door to a dark room and shining a light in there and starting to see what needs to be cleared out. Like that's what awareness is. But you're right. So much of the time we're like, oh, I'm aware of it now. I don't need to, like, it's done. We're good. Check that box.
Yeah.
But that's the very beginning. It's the very, very beginning.
Yeah. So then what happens?
Well, so if I was to break this up, once we become aware of something like a pattern that we really don't like, the first thing we want to do is check our judgment. You're not going to look at anything that you're feeling judgment from yourself around. So a huge part of the work that I do is helping people zoom out and put themselves into a greater perspective where they're not wrong, they're not bad, they're not behind. They're a human having a human experience. And everything that is happening to them in their life is an opportunity to bring in more ease, more love, more self-knowledge, and greater alignment. So therefore, like everything is happening for us. We don't like this because when you're like, no, the terrible thing that happened shouldn't have happened. And it's like, no, the terrible thing that happened has an opportunity in it. It is terrible, whatever it is. If you don't want it to happen in your life, it is. We have difficult things that happen, but the truth is, underneath every single situation, there is a moment for you to honor yourself more deeply, to set a boundary, to carry more love for yourself, to know yourself at a deeper level so that from now on, you'll make different choices that are more in alignment with you, you know? So for me, if we don't work on our brains and our perspective and the way that we're looking at the world and ourselves within it, but we're trying to do emotional work, if you stay in that old limiting perspective and you're trying to feel your feelings, you're going to swirl all over the place. So the first thing we have to do is zoom out and go, every single human causes dissonance for other people and themselves. Everybody does that. Everybody has strengths and beautiful gifts that they offer humanity, but then everybody has patterns and ways of being in the world that create friction for themselves, that like cause themselves pain, that limit themselves. And so your ways of doing that might look different than me, but we both do it. So I like to just let people know your coping mechanisms. We can put people pleasing in here. We can put numbing out with running, food, Netflix, whatever. Other coping mechanisms, you can think of anything related to anger, puffing up, getting violent, blaming, gaslighting people. All of these things, including caretaking, they're all coping mechanisms. Some of them, if we're coping with exercise, that looks a lot better than coping with violence. Because exercise, these people have usually beautiful looking bodies and it doesn't look like it's hurting anybody. But if someone's coping with exercise, they're covering their pain by exercising.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it's coming from the same place. Someone who's being violent, who's harming other people, is also coping with their pain, but they're harming other people. It's the same root is what I'm getting at. Do we want to be violent and hurt other people? No, of course not. We don't want to be causing pain out in the world. But when you can look underneath all of the behaviors that are dysfunctional and go, it's all stemming from pain we haven't felt, it normalizes all of it. It's like, okay, so just learn to look underneath your behavior and you can melt whatever it is you're doing. The behavior doesn't need to be permanent.
Okay.
So when all of it's coming from pain, none of it needs to be demonized, and we can work with all of it. If you're judging it and you're demonizing it, it's going to be really hard to work with it within yourself.
So you're saying people just aren't feeling there's an underlying feeling to everything, right? Like anger oftentimes is either like anxiety or sadness or something else. Like there's something else under there. And the person isn't allowing themselves to actually feel that real feeling and acknowledge it and work through it.
Exactly.
And then the other surface emotion is what's coming up.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I group emotions into two different categories. One is resistance to tender emotions. So anger is definitely in there.
Mm-hmm.
Control. Control is in there. Fear, blame, judgment, all of those things are just resistance to tender emotions. So in that category is emotions, but also behaviors and emotional experiences that we have. So there are a bunch of different things we do to resist tender emotion. These are things we want to watch out for because underneath every single piece of resistance that we have, there's always tender feeling. Every time you're mad, your heart is broken. We don't get mad about stuff we don't care about. So when you're mad, when you're anxious, when you're fearful, when you're blaming, when you're controlling, there is some piece of you that's feeling really tender because you want more for the people involved. You want more for yourself. Someone's getting treated in a way that they don't deserve to be treated. There's something that needs to change here. And so instead of going to the tender feeling and feeling how broken our hearts feel that we're watching other people suffering, we resist it because it makes us feel powerful. It's more culturally acceptable to be proactive and just start doing things to fix the problem, or find who's to blame so that we can stop it. But the truth is, if we're always staying with the resistance, if we're always going to solving the problem and we're never looking at where our hearts are hurting, that energy that's generated by seeing something that's hard for you, it stays in your system and it gets repressed. It stays with you. And over time, it builds up and it makes us a little bit numb. It makes us negative. It makes us lose our sense of humor, causes us to be resentful. When we don't know how to feel those tender emotions through, they build up over time and they affect us in a negative way in our relationships and our sense of fulfillment, in our ability to know ourselves. There's so much information that comes in from a self-knowledge perspective when you feel your feelings through. You get very in touch with yourself. So we really want to be able to discern between resistance and tender feeling and learn to process tender feeling, because also then you're not resisting anymore. If you're an angry person and you learn to feel the tender thing underneath, your anger's going to go away. You don't need to have that in your life anymore. So it's about melting the root of what's causing the behavior that you don't like in the first place. And that I call that tender feeling.
So what if someone, like they have that anger comes up so quickly? How do you deal with that if someone's like, I don't know, like maybe they can acknowledge, like we were talking about awareness. Like you could say, okay, I'm aware that I'm starting to feel angry because of this, but then that anger just like comes first. Is it really just all about mindfulness and the pause? Like how do you deal with someone who's feeling like that's just coming before I even have a chance to do anything about it?
That's real. That's real. So the very first thing is this isn't an overnight. It's not a quick fix. So it's about you having a new relationship with yourself. So if you're like, wow, I really am angry and I don't want to be that way anymore, then the next time you get angry, you may get through the entire situation completely unconscious. You may not catch yourself until after the fact. And after the fact, that's when you go, oh, shoot. All right. Right now in this moment where I just did the thing that I feel ashamed of, that I don't want to do anymore, I have two choices. I can beat on myself about it, continue to stew in it and keep it alive, or I can go, human, where are you hurting? What's going on with you that you just got angry? Where's the tender feeling under there? And then eventually we learn how to competently feel. I literally teach people how to cry again, like competently. Yeah. It's a part of my work. Part of me is a crying coach. So when we learn after the fact to then feel the tender thing, what happens is you dissolve a little bit of the thing that just made you get angry. And now you know, okay, underneath in this particular situation, underneath that was this grief of some variety. So the next time you find yourself in that situation, because you dealt with it a little differently after the fact, you might the next time catch yourself at the very tail end and do 30 seconds less of the behavior that you were doing. And then the next time after that, it's 2 minutes less. And then you catch yourself in the middle and then you catch yourself at the beginning. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like over time, we start to get closer and closer to actually changing the behavior entirely. But it's a gradual process of building the awareness and catching ourselves. There's a lot that can go into it. And I have lots of different processes that help people to sort of sort through their brains. But the very first thing is just think, like I was saying before, if you're judging the part of you that just did the thing you're not proud of, you're not going to be able to process it. So you have to stop judging yourself. You have to make yourself a human being who, I don't care who you are, you cause pain for other people because you're a person in a body. Everybody causes pain for other people accidentally sometimes. Even if you never do it on purpose, you accidentally hurt other humans. It is a part of the human experience. If we don't normalize that, we don't look at the parts of ourselves that are hurting, and we don't look at the parts of ourselves that are actually needing us to dissolve them so that they can live more aware and cause even less pain. So.
Yeah. I think a lot of people realize they do this. And like you said, they just don't work to fix the issue, or fix the problem. How could we start teaching kids this from a young age? I have 3 kids and I'm thinking about, all of them at some point have been super angry about something, or they're fighting with their siblings or whatever. My middle one, I think, sometimes gets so angry. He flips out, gets so frustrated. And then he's sad, then he's crying because he's so frustrated. And I don't have great coping tools because I get angry too. So how do I besides obviously it definitely starts with me. I can understand that. But, but what else could I do to start that process with children to be you know what, how do we get in touch with these underlying feelings first? And I don't know. Do you have any advice for that?
So I just want to start out by saying I don't have any children of my own yet, but I do have 2 nephews who are 5 and 9 who I have spent the last 7 years with a couple days a week. And what I can tell you about them, they're, my little dudes, is when they get mad, I start asking them, are you feeling sad because I'm about to leave? Are you feeling like no one's listening to you? Are you feeling controlled? I start asking them questions about where their anger is coming from so that they can start to get in touch with what's underneath it for them. And then the most important thing for kids, I think you already know this because most of us do this without even thinking about it. When they cry, don't rush them through the process. Mm-hmm. When they get connected to tears, just be a safe space for them because kids are already really deeply connected to their own emotions. And as they grow up and they start to see how their emotions impact the people around them, are people trying to make me feel better? Are people distracting me? Are people making fun of me for the way that I feel? They start noticing how their feelings are being received and they start editing their emotions. So the best thing that we can do, at least at home, we can't control them when they're with other people, but when they're with us at home, the best thing we can do is look out for their feelings. When you notice they're having a feeling, don't rush them through whatever it is that's happening. The activity should always be secondary to whatever they're feeling. And then we have to hold space. We can't make their feelings wrong. If we want to be a safe space for them to return to, everything needs to be welcome, including their anger. But this is where we have to be helping them understand the root underneath the anger so they can melt the anger quickly and get to the tender feeling. So I love that you said, I know that this starts with me. We really do need to know how to do this ourselves because otherwise, when you get in a heated moment with your kid, you're gonna be floundering because you're gonna be looking for the exits in the same way that they are. And so when we have deep presence with our own emotions, we offer deep presence to other people when they have deep emotions.
Yeah, it's something I really need to work on. And I've acknowledged, like I said, I'm really great at awareness. I love to psychoanalyze myself and I'll be like, oh, why did I just get so angry? And often it's because, if you look at the deeper root, I think I'm being a bad mom because I've lost control. That's usually what it is. I've lost control of the situation. It's chaos, or they're trying to go on screens and we're not supposed to have screen time and we're not supposed to do this. And I want them to eat healthy, all these things that I have these super, super high standards for myself as a parent. And if they feel like they're not being met, or I feel like I'm failing in that regard, then I get angry because really, it's the shame and it's fear and it's a bunch of things.
Well, and self-judgment, right? Because if there's all of these things that we should be doing in order to be a good parent, then it sets us up to feel like we're failing, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's about really looking at our human and going, where am I putting pressure on you? Where am I not making room for your feelings? Where am I making you feel like you're not enough? Because if I'm making you, my own human, feel like I'm not enough, then I'm making other people feel like they're not enough, and I'm not even meaning to, because I'm projecting that onto them. So it really does. I talk all the time about how we have to arrive and be the safe space for ourselves first in order to, in a sustainable, consistent, trustworthy kind of way, be that safe space for other people. When we don't offer this to ourselves, it means that when it comes to our kids, when it comes to our partners, our friends, you're going to be a safe space when you have something in your cup. On days where you're exhausted, you're not a safe space.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to really arrive to ourselves so that when they need us, we're there. And also, when we mess it up, we can then go back to them and go, I do this all the time with my nephews. Hey, the other day when you were crying and I was leaving and I encouraged you, I pulled you in and told you it's okay to cry. And then I had to leave and you were still crying. It was I realized that probably really hurt because I had just told you it was okay to cry. And then I left. And he was like, yeah, he got tears in his eyes actually when I acknowledged it with him.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm really sorry about that. I want you to know your feelings really matter to me. I'm like getting emotional thinking about it because I care about him so much. Going back and acknowledging these moments where we don't quite get there with them, I think helps, at least in my relationships, helps repair so much because
Yeah.
people feel, and children feel really cared about, and they feel seen. They feel like, oh, even though they call me Anton, like, oh, even though Anton had to leave and that hurt my feelings, she didn't mean to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to offer them the love in that moment, in the apology that I couldn't give them back there as I was on my way out the door.
Yep.
So it's never too late, especially with kids, to go back and own things. And I think it's such a beautiful example for them to see us go, hey, you know what? I'm really not proud of how I handled that. And so, like, I want you to know I'm sorry that I talked to you like that. You know, they're people too. They need to be spoken to like people.
Definitely. Do you think that boys and men are repressing their feelings even more so than women? Because I've already noticed this as we were talking about this. I'm just thinking that I think my oldest son definitely does not cry anymore. I've always been the kind of parent to be like, no, like real men absolutely cry. But it happens anyway. I mean, it's just society, I guess, or these things that, and even my middle son, I think, has made comments like it's bad to cry. And I was like, what? No, it's not. It's great to cry. Like if you need to cry and you want to, or you don't want to, but you just feel sad, like you can cry. So is that just happening in society? It's already like influencing them. I don't know what the answer is to kind of undo that as a parent when I feel like I've already tried to undo that, except maybe it is more, maybe I didn't make a safe enough space for them to express those emotions or to feel like they could cry comfortably. I don't know.
Well, the first thing I want to say is they're lucky to have a mom who's thinking about these things, you know, and like even just having awareness of your kid's emotional process and where they're not feeling is you're doing as much as you possibly can, as at least as far as like outward, letting them know that it's okay to cry. But I think what you're hinting at here and what you're getting curious about is there is more when we feel in ourselves so comfortable with our own tears that we're not rushing ourselves through our process. And we're just like, oh, thank God I'm crying about this because it means I'm going to be free of it really soon. Like, body, cry every tear you got. I'm here for this. Like, we're letting this go finally. Like, when it's a welcome process in us, it means that when people cry in front of us, we are, at least this is how it is with me, I am 1,000% comfortable with people in tears. There is not a single part of me that rushes. There's not a part of me that needs to cheer them up or make it wrong or diminish the feeling. I'm there, open arms, I'm present, I can do that forever. That melts people. When they feel that from you, when they feel that level of comfort, then they're like, oh, it really is okay to cry. Because before that, if we're telling people it's okay to cry, but they feel in us that we feel helpless when they cry or we don't know what to do, they're getting two messages and they're going to go with what they feel over what they're being told every time. So beautiful to start with the message, it's okay to cry. And now there's an invitation to deepen it and model that it's okay to cry by doing that ourselves.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many people will come in for a one-on-one session, men included, sit on my couch and within the first 10 minutes start to tear up and go, do people just cry in here because I feel like I need to cry? And I'm like, I hand them the tissues and I'm like, yeah, people cry in here all the time because that's the space. They feel how okay it is, you know?
Yeah.
So we can't forget that people are feeling our energy all the time. They're feeling us more than they're listening to us, you know? And so when people feel safe, they let down.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I don't feel comfortable with people crying. I guess you were saying that. I was like, you're totally right. Because I know when people cry, just like, or if someone's died or something, and I feel just tons of compassion and sympathy and empathy with people, but I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like I feel uncomfortable. I'm like, oh no, what do I do now?
Before you were asking about men and boys specifically and their societal programming. And I think the truth is all of us have repressed our feelings, but there is societal pressure on men and boys to hold it together in a bigger way. And I do think they have a unique set of challenges around getting in touch with their feelings and owning that and being really feeling safe within themselves to feel. I think with women societally, it's very acceptable for us to cry with one another. It's very acceptable for us to get emotional about things. There isn't societal pressure for us to hold it together. So I do think that there is a difference there. But I think on a whole, all humans across all cultures have suppressed some, if not most, emotion in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Like, meaning we no longer express it in a healthy way. We're suppressing it. So all of us, I think, have outgrown our ability to cry things through. When you came in as a baby, you cried effortlessly and you did it really competently because you didn't have any judgment of your tears.
Mm-hmm.
You were very present in your body. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is coming out of our brains and into our body when we have tears. Crying is a very embodied experience if you're going to receive relief and actually clear the energy. So we have to come down out of our heads and into our bodies. Kids are in their bodies. Until they start getting traumatized and until they start getting programmed by society and start becoming aware of how they affect other people, they're authentic. Their yeses are yeses. Their no's are no's.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they fall down and get hurt and they cry in a big way and it moves through and they go right back to what they were doing. They're very good at clearing that energy. And so
Yeah.
we all came in knowing how to do this. It's just the reason it's so hard is because we all have so many layers of programming that we now need to start peeling away and undoing so that we can get back to that natural state where emotions come in, they wash over us. We have no reaction to our emotion. We just feel the emotion.
Yeah.
It moves through and we go back to healthy nervous system rebalance. Crying releases oxytocin. It's really good for your nervous system, but only if you can get your brain to be quiet while you're doing it, because otherwise we can swirl and we can get sucked in. So again, that's part of what I teach people is like, how do you sort through your brain so that when you cry, you have this beautiful, pristine space to move stuff through so it actually clears.
So do you think healing never ends, right?
Right.
But especially with your work, I guess, because I've done an interview about meditation and different stuff. So it's a practice. Would you say what you teach is also a practice that has to be continuously done?
I love this question, and I'm so glad you asked it because I don't think of it as a practice.
Okay.
I think of this work as being a new relationship with yourself.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a visual for how I think about this, the difference. So let's put two exact copies of Jillian on the couch. We've got brain Jillian, okay? And then the other Jillian we're going to say is heart Jillian, or heart and body Jillian, okay? So we've got these two different parts. Self-reflection and personal development, for the most part, is brain Jillian talking about heart body Jillian and going, she's really good at this. She's working on these things. She really needs to improve over here. We don't like this about her, but we're celebrating this in her a little bit more. It's brain Jillian talking to the room about heart body Jillian over here. Okay. There's a bunch of boxes. There's a checklist. Things are very objective. The work that I'm inviting people into is to stop talking about yourself to the room. You are not a set of boxes. You are not a checklist. You are not a set of things that need to be improved or fixed. You are a person who deserves to be treated like a person. You deserve love and connection and safety. And so in this visual, instead of talking to the room, what I'm asking you to do is put down your checklist, turn, and ask, heart Jillian, body Jillian, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? What do you need right now? How are you feeling that we just walked through that back there? We're not talking about Jillian to the room anymore. We're checking in with Jillian. We're making sure that she's okay. We're not judging her experiences anymore. We're just trying to love her regardless of what she's going through. We're trying to make her know that she's supported and she's got a safe place to land no matter what challenges she comes up against in her life, no matter how bad she fumbles something. We want her to know she's loved, she's accepted, and she's welcome. And so in that way, this is a completely new way of being with ourselves. It's not a practice, it's a relationship. And just like any relationship, we're investing in ourselves in the way that we invest in a marriage, a partner, our children. You have to have daily conversations with these people. Check in, honor their feelings, own when you don't treat them well, apologize, lean in. These are all parts of being in relationship. And so it's really important that we're doing this with ourselves. So
Yeah.
in this way, it's just, we almost could take the word healing out of this, because it's just, how can I have a more meaningful relationship with myself? Relationships are ongoing forever. There's no, people are in your life until they're not in your life. And so you're going to be with you until your last breath. So it's like,
It's a long relationship.
Exactly. And so you're like, all right. So it's not a practice. It's like a new way of being, but certainly within the new way of being, there are different ways that we care for ourselves, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not a practice because you change the whole dynamic of everything, but the checking in with yourself could be a practice in some regard. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like
Yep,
making that
Yep.
effort, every day to be like, wait a minute. Because I think, especially as a mother, but I'm sure everybody, because their lives are busy, right? A busy life, not just being a mother. You just don't take the time, right? You're just not pausing to feel your body, like you said, and say, how am I actually doing? How am I actually feeling? Where is there tension in my body? So there's a lot of connections here with everything you're talking about with mindfulness. So tell me about how this comes into your practice. What's the Conscious Heart Academy, and like, how are people interacting with you? I know you said you do one-on-one too, but what's the Conscious Heart Academy?
So the Conscious Heart Academy is on Mighty Networks. Are you familiar with Mighty Networks?
Not really. I think I know what it is, but I've never been on it.
When you get into it, it kind of looks like a Facebook group, but then there are more individual spaces. You can host Zoom events right there, schedule them, and people can click right through to the Zoom. So basically, the Conscious Heart Academy is this little, I call it my classroom and my community. So within it, I've got this incredible emotional healing resource library that's got so many instructional videos, so many different infographics. I've got worksheets to help you do the work on a day-to-day basis. I've got like a step-by-step video on like how to cry, like how to learn to cry again. So there's amazing resources in there. I'm right now adding transcripts to all the videos so that if you're a person that likes to read along, that those are available. But then within the Conscious Heart Academy, there are 6 live Zoom sessions every month. So always once a week, sometimes twice a week, where we all get together on Zoom and we have a deep dive conversation about something in our advanced topics workshop. I've got a basics workshop where we take the fundamental core basics of this work. How do we cry competently? How do we sort through resistant emotions versus tender feeling? We take those basics and we pull them apart. I've got a Q&A. And then probably my favorite session happens twice a month, and it's called Work Through It. And during Work Through It sessions, we all check in briefly, but then people start one by one giving me a scenario that they've tried to go through on their own and they're stuck. And we troubleshoot in live time, and they're in the hot seat. I'm asking them questions, and we work through it and we get down to the tender feeling. So people can see really practically, how do we apply this work in our day-to-day life? I think that's my biggest mission, is to make healing work really practical and really applicable, and not just an understanding. So the Conscious Heart Academy is just a place where you can come land with other people who are also doing this work, learn all of the tools and resources, and then get like one-on-one help with me in session. I don't have a team that answers emails and questions. Like when you ask something, you're getting me.
Yeah.
So it's a really good place to interface with me and just really start creating that safe space within yourself so that you can offer that safe space to other people.
Yeah, that sounds like a great community.
It's sweet. Yeah.
Are you doing anything in person, or is everything virtual?
Everything is virtual right now. I really hope to offer in-person multi-day programs probably next year. But for right now, everything is virtual. Plus, the people in the community, we're kind of like spread out everywhere. I'm in Maine, so we have a few people in Maine, but we've got folks in different parts of the country also. So, yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you really want to talk about, that you wanted to add?
I think my biggest take home for people is just to really start connecting in with yourself as a person. Really start to look for your own humanity. And if you have a hard time with that, I really would encourage people to start with the mirror. It can be a really simple thing. The next time you find yourself in front of a mirror, take a deep breath, feel your feet on the floor, and make eye contact with yourself, and just see how you feel. Just hold eye contact and just see what comes up. In the beginning, you might feel awkward with yourself. And if that's the case, like, just laugh at that if you can. Like, how funny is it to feel awkward with yourself?
Yeah.
You're with you all the time. That's such a silly thing. But then you might have some grief come up. You might have some more tender feelings come up, and just be curious about that. You know, like I was saying sort of in the beginning in this process, when you're talking to another person, you're taking in their facial expression, you're hearing their tone, you're feeling their energy, you're seeing their body language. There is so much information that you're taking in when you're connecting with another person that you really care about. And with you, when you're silent in your head all day, you miss so much information about how you're feeling, what you're needing, and what's going on with you. So the more you can practice starting to talk things out loud. I have like a whole protocol to help people make voice recordings so that they can process externally with themselves. The more you can talk stuff out loud, the more you can connect with yourself in the mirror and really take in what your human is feeling based on what you're seeing and feeling from yourself, the more you're going to start to recognize that you are a person that really deserves more of your own time, that you are worth investing in. And when you start to feel that, it no longer becomes a chore or an obligation or a box that you need to check in with yourself. It feels good to check in with yourself because you know that when you do that, you're going to care for yourself, feel what you need to feel, and you're going to have relief on the other side. You're going to have more in your cup. Your overwhelm is going to be diminished. You're rushing, you're hurrying, you're feeling, I don't know, some people like to control things, like your grasp on stuff. You're just going to feel like more flexible.
Yeah.
More ease in your life when you're showing up to you. But it really does start with recognizing our own humanity. So the more you can do that, the easier this process is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Where can everybody find you? Tell everybody your website, your social media, all the things.
Yeah. So my website is intuitiveemotionalhealing.com, and pretty much everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, it's at Intuitive Emotional Healing.
Okay.
So easy to find me.
Yep. Go check her out. She has a lot of wonderful tidbits, and I'm impressed by you just like talking. You look like you're just talking casually and it's like some like profound thing. I'm like, how did she do that? Yeah, it's great. So thanks so much for coming on, Claire.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jillian.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to leave a review. In that review, I would love to hear what topics you'd like to see covered next and which guests you'd love to hear from in future episodes. You can connect with me on Instagram at Original Being Podcast, and be sure to follow, like, and share the podcast on all platforms to help spread the word. Thanks for listening.